Hello, 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 and welcome. I'm Sherry Hemstreet, and you are listening to the Return to God Revival. Thank you for being here. Today we are covering the topic of the Bible, the truth, the myth, the folly, all of it. It's a big topic. I will not be able to cover this entire topic in one short experience in this limited time that we have right here, right now. But it is a good place to begin, and it is needed for this revival series, and so here we are. I get a lot of people who are very curious about this. And as somebody who deeply loves God and carries their Bible with them quite often, I spend time in my Bible. I know my Bible, not as well as I could or should, but also perhaps even better than I could or should. Right? Because everything is perspective. So with regard to the Bible, let's talk about the Bible. Where does one begin? Genesis? No, we're not going to begin there. We're going to begin with how the Bible came to be. Oh, actually, I can't do that because I don't know how the Bible got here. So what I do know, or what I think I know, or what I understand, is there a long, long time ago, in a land far away, for which I was not present and you were not present, there was a time and a space that intersected. And in that time or space that went on for a period of time, there were people that knew God. They had relationships with God, experiences with God. And some of these people wrote about it and shared about it and talked about it. And then, we have the whole experience of Jesus being here. And of course, we have religion, which is older than God. Religion has always been. But God, right? So God is written about in the Bible, and there are writings that have been found and put into the Bible, preserved, passed down. And those writings that were preserved, passed down, and put into the Bible were then manipulated by kings. I mean, I'm talking to you, King James, if you're listening. Right? But also by man, and also by religion, and popes, and church leaders. Tons of people. The Bible has been altered, manipulated for people's outcomes, for certain results, to keep people in alignment or disempowered, manipulated, right? Or to convey moral worth or moral standards. But also then there's sea scrolls and writings that didn't make it in there, and people that, have written and had experiences with God or Jesus that didn't make it in there. And so there's that. So it's not just what went into the Bible, but it's also what didn't make it into the Bible, right? So there's so many things to think of here. But the thing that I want to talk about outside of the manipulation and the way the Bible has been used to control people and the way the Bible has been taught, I'm not even going to get into the fact that people spend more time reading the Bible than creating a relationship with God. I'm not going to get into that here. But what I'm going to talk about is what we can never fully understand. And this is where I say over and over and over, you have to read your Bible with your heart, not with your mind, because you are entering into a relationship with God, and a relationship with God is like every other relationship. It happens in your heart and through your experience, not through a book. If you are listening to this and you are involved in a relationship, your significant other, if you're married, if you have a wife or a husband or a mother or a father, or you didn't spontaneously combust here or come from immaculate conception, there is a relationship in your life at some point. When you came into communion with that person, into relationship with that person, the word ship means that it holds something in relation. So between you and this other person, there is something held. And you did not get to expand or deepen or experience that relationship through a book about that person. You had to actually sit and talk to that person. You had to take in their essence, their body language, their verbal cues, their inflections, their cadences of voice. You took in their body language and their nonverbal cues. You started to know and understand them better through spending time with them, not through reading a book. Now, I very much advise my clients to read a book, the Bible, and to know God, to find God. You can find God in the Bible, and you can find out who you are through God in the Bible, and who you are here and who you are here to be and become, and what is available to you. And those are all very important things, but that is not the beginning and ending of your relationship with God. And the beginning and ending of your relationship with God doesn't happen through Genesis to Revelations. It happens through you and your connection. I have a very real relationship with God. And that's because I spend time, because I talk and listen. I spend a great deal of time in communion with God. And I found God in the beginning. Well, he came to me. But after that, I spent many, many times chasing him through different religions and different texts and different experiences. And then I finally settled into the one that rang true, and the Bible. The one that called to me. And in that, I got to know God. And there's plenty of God to know in the Bible, but you have to recognize God in the Bible, and you have to not get caught up in the manipulation and what the Bible isn't. We are in a time when people spend a lot of time cherry picking the Bible and creating cognitive dissonance and cognitive bias, and they're in their own echo chamber. And there is a perspective of the Bible at every level of consciousness, but there is only one truth at the highest level. There are many truths at different levels of consciousness, many truths at different perspectives, but at the end of the day, there is only one truth that can ring true and be absolute truth. Now, when you look at a Bible, when you go to a Bible, I urge you to find the words and allow them to go within your being, because your being holds the flow of God. Your being is the conduit of God. You are the expression of God, the power and the presence of God. And within you, you have a system that recognizes this. I call this your truth-telling system, your knowing system, your K3, you know that you know that you know. Your body recognizes truth above all else. But to recognize truth above all else, you have to get conscious. You have to be in awareness. You have to be present in the moment. It requires much. You have to be willing. You have to be available. But if you just get still, you will know when you come across God in the Bible. If you just get still, you will know when you feel the presence of God within and without of you. If you just get still, you can receive the truth of God that is available to you. Because there's so much we cannot know. You see, just as if the Bible were written today, it would be saying things like on God, TikTok. It would be a book that related to people today. And I can't even imagine what that would be. Because there's so much pop culture today. Everything is a 7-second video blip and, a meme. So, would you turn to a page in the Bible if it was written today and it would say, yo, love your neighbor, bro? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that the Bible and the people that gave us the writings in the Bible, they had a very, very particular experience that I don't think many people understood. So when you hear from God, when you are delivered a message to God, from God, it is not necessarily always in words. And so the problem with receiving a message from God is the human interpretation of it. Some messages are very clear. Get out, go home, call your children, stop, right? We've all had those. We've all had those audible moments where this voice comes out of nowhere and says, turn left, do this, do that. Yes, that is God. We get those. But there are other ways of receiving messages from God that are less clear. They're transmissions. They are inexplicable and very difficult to articulate. So I can be giving a message to somebody from God and I can be stumbling over my words because what I can understand in the spirit, I can't articulate in the human. And that's exactly the same way that it was for everyone who has ever spoken to God, received a message from God. My spirit knows full well. My human is at a loss for words. And trying to make sense of it always falls short. And trying to convey it always falls short. So we have to take into account that the person who was receiving the message, depending on the level of the message, everyone's like, oh, well, God just said the words and the words were the words, and that person is supposed to put down the words exactly as they were. Well, sure, maybe, but I don't know. That's not how it works for me. And so we're assuming, because we weren't there and we don't get to ask this person and we don't know. But you have to look back at the time for which it was written. And you have to look at so many things, like the level of consciousness at that time, and the pop culture at that time, and the word and the meaning at that time. So just to think about this, right? Like, words and meanings have changed so much over the years. I mean, 2,000 years ago, they weren't saying the word conversate. And while I take umbrage with that word, and I prefer not to be in the presence of the word conversate or engaged in a conversation in which the word conversate happens, I think we can all acknowledge that we are moving toward a time when conversate is going to be a word. It might already be. Like the word twerk. Completely unnecessary. Didn't exist in the 80s. We didn't even know we needed the word. FYI, we don't, but here it is and we have it. But they didn't have it 2,000 years ago. And there are words that they had 2,000 years ago that we don't have. And you have to understand that These were not an evolved people 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, 1,500 years ago. The level of evolution is not what it is today because there were less people on the planet. I've said this time and time again. Diversity is what causes evolution, is what expands consciousness. So the lack of diversity, although there was a great amount of diversity because, there was Judea and there was Constantinople and there was Persia. All of these places were entirely different. And so there was great diversity, but there was not the volume of diversity. So there was still limitation there. And in the diversity, there was the translation and the miscommunication. And there was not enough evolution at that point, or not enough consciousness at that point. So there was limitation. There was limitation in every which way. If we put you next to St. Paul, one of the people who have contributed the most writings to the Bible, you and he, a modern person, would be vastly different in your mannerisms, your thought process, your movements. All of that would be entirely different. The way you proceeded to do something. Nothing about it would be the same. The words, if we asked each of you to say a simple sentence like, "What time is dinner?" could be different for each of you because of the common era with which you exist and the common era with which he existed. The words were different, the tenses were different, the meanings were different. We can never, of course, we have all of these ways of trying to go back and using like etymology and linguistics and all of these things to decipher everything and deconstruct everything. And we like to think we're so smart because we just know it all, because we know more than anyone else has ever known, because we are the most advanced and most complex creatures that have existed yet, perhaps. But we look back and no, we cannot say for certainty. I was not there. You were not there. None of us can say with 100,000% certainty. We like to think that we can. That's our ego. Of course, yes. Of course, we like to think that we can. But we don't know. We don't know exactly what the message Paul was trying to convey. If it is exactly what he was trying to convey. Now we have the letters, the Pauline letters, right? And I reference these a lot because I like them. I think they're quite nice. And it's easy because just about everybody knows St. Paul, right? And so he was limited with his own mindset, his own limitations, his own shortcomings, his own life. You see, when somebody is a messenger, until they learn to step out of themselves and be a conduit, they deliver everything through a specific lens. And while they do experience, or I should say, I don't know that they do, but I do know that I have experienced the upgrade of frequency in the presence of God, so I can assimilate things better and receive them better. I don't know what that looked like for Paul or anyone else. And there are so many things that we cannot take into account and account for. The common era, the pop culture, the meaning of words, the conveyance of words. We say, "Hey, what's up?" And we go back 300 years, and if you say, "Hey, what's up?" to someone, they're like, "Hay? The hay is in the barn." It's the same with the things in the Bible. And this is why I say to read the Bible with your heart, because when you read the Bible with your heart and you're seeking to understand God and know God, you find God. But if you are seeking to understand the Bible, you're missing the entire point. If you're seeking to understand the Bible and glean your teachings from it and gain your knowledge from it, because become wisdomous of the Bible, then you are buried in theology. It takes a great theologian to mess up everything from God. It is a sacred text. It is not a sacred relationship. Yes, I love the Bible. I use many different types of Bibles. I like to read different Bibles. I like to explore them. I like to find God in everything. But not everything is from God in the Bible, so we can't say that. You know, I had people attack me online because I was like, God doesn't judge. And they're like, there's over 200 cases of God judging in the Bible. Great. Man wrote that. Did you ask God if he judged you? We have to extract God and man and find the God in the Bible through surgical procedures of the heart. This cannot be done conceptually. It cannot be done logically. People love to pick up the Bible and it becomes a logical experience for them. No, the Bible is the beginning. It is supposed to begin the opening of your heart to understanding. When you seek to understand and you seek to know, that is different than seeking knowledge. You can have knowledge of someone. We all know more than we want to about Kim Kardashian. Let's just leave that there. We have knowledge of her. We have great knowledge of Kim Kardashian, whether we want to or not, whether we like it or not. But that is not wisdom. That is knowledge. And that doesn't mean we know her. It means we have knowledge of her. There is no relationship there. We can read about her all we want, and we can take the quotes that perhaps she says. But in doing that, we still don't know her. We have to rely on the author and their ability to put that quote into an article or whatever it is we are taking in precision. And let's just face it, human error is human. It's the essence of human. This is why 17 different people can see an accident and you'll have 38 different ways that it happened instead of 17 different ways. Instead of one. The stories won't all match. Which is why the stories don't all match. Everyone knew Jesus in a different way. Everyone conversed with God in a different way. Just like people tell me I can't see the face of God, Moses did. What makes you think that if Moses did, why can't I? Why can't you? Just because somebody else had a limitation about this and they put it in the Bible doesn't mean it applies to me. Doesn't mean it applies to you. You see, there is the gap of knowledge, the gap of evolution, and we are coming into a time where God is eternal and infinite and unchanging. But our experience and knowledge and wisdom and relationship with him changed. So the message changed. So we are going to be getting more messages from God starting from this point forward. And they're not going to be from Jesus, or maybe they will be from Jesus, but it's not going to be like Jesus coming back and declaring something. That's not, I will cover that in another one. Yes. Every audio I share has an audio that I have to cover something else in. Right? But the messages are going to come through people like you and I. And then it's up to you and I and others to discern our truth and where we are with that message. And to find our own relationship with God. We have to be accountable for our relationship with God. Our relationship with God isn't the responsibility of the Bible. It is not the responsibility of the pastor. It is not the responsibility of the church leader, and yet we have made it so. And then when these humans act like humans and they err, we hold them to the highest degrees accountable. Because we're angry, because we were relying on them to be God instead of going to God. The Bible is not your God. The teacher, the pastor, the priest is not your God. The leader is not your God. Your God is within you. So as above, so below. As without, so within. God is all around you. But the time of being spoon-fed exactly what it is from God that you need That time is past. That time has been gone for centuries, 1,500 years at least. You see, the great thing about the Bible is that it exists, and the worst thing about the Bible is that it exists. Because while the writings and the teachings and the messages that many brought forward, and Jesus was here and many shared those messages, they were for a time. They were not eternal. The message was eternal, and it will always apply to some people. Except as we evolve and we come into greater alignment with God and we know God more, we are available to receive more from God. And that is the point that we are at in humanity right now. That is why I am out here sharing these messages, because, and I know I'm not the only one that gets them, but I'm the only one that I can find that is sharing them. But because we have evolved to a point where people are recognizing that the truth that they were taught and the truth that was revealed to them is not the truth that they know to be true. And it doesn't mean that it was wrong. Just because you like to read picture board books when you were 3 doesn't mean that you can't read a novel when you were 20. But at 3, you cannot take in the novel and you cannot read it on your own. And at 20, the picture board book from when you were 3 no longer serves you. There is growth. Nothing stays the same. Nothing in nature stays the same. We are part of nature. We are evolving. So the Bible has so many aspects and nuances through which it has been manipulated and translated and mistranslated and misunderstood. And although we have all of these great ways of trying to understand dictionaries of times past and bring capacity to words that we don't know and put them in an order that we can understand in today's language, so much is lost. The essence is lost. The power is lost, because in the words, in the conveyance, there is power. Words have power. Words carry frequency. Words are containers for creation. And a lot of humanity has outgrown the words that were given. And more is coming in, and new is coming in. You can read the same book over and over, and through different perspectives and different points of evolution, you will glean different things from it and become a different person as you grow through the evolution of reading the book. I picked up a book. I picked up the Bible. I believe I might have been 17. No. Yes, I was somewhere around there. And I started reading the New Testament. Beginning to end, the New Testament. And it didn't hold the meaning to me that it held when I read it in my 20s, which was different in my 30s. Which is hard to understand because I'm still 26, right? For being eternal, 26 is certainly where I like to be stuck. Oh, but here I am, 40 and 50, and still revelation. But the revelation didn't come from a pastor. You see, pastors and priests and church leaders, everything that you know about religion and the people who've been teaching it, they're just opening the door. It's your job to walk through. And if you walk through, you gain more. You get all of it. They're the appetizer. They're the introduction. They're the gatekeeper. And quite often, they get a lot of it wrong. But it's always the space where it opens it. So just because it served you at one point doesn't mean it has to serve you the same way throughout your life. Just because it worked for you at one point doesn't mean it works the same way for you throughout your life. Just because you enjoyed jelly beans for breakfast when you were 3 doesn't mean at 33 you'll enjoy jelly beans for breakfast. It's evolution. Allow yourself to evolve. Allow your God to be evolved with you, through you. Not that He's changing, but your relationship, your perception, your understanding is changing. The Bible is just a little outdated. It's a little stale. It's, but it's reliable. It's reliable in its shortcomings, in its manipulation. It's reliable because we can see man all over it. But yet if we look deeply and we read with our heart and we seek to understand, we can find the God of today. Who is the God of yesterday? But because we are not the person of yesterday, we need to understand the God of today. It has to be understandable to who we are today. And that's the match. That's the point where everything comes together. And that's what's so often missing in many teachings. Because you see, the Bible can be a great tool for teaching, but it is not a great tool for relationship. So while I do believe in the Bible, I do not fully believe the Bible. And that is the myth of the Bible and the truth of the Bible. The Bible, like everything else, is what you decide it is, what you choose for it to be. So if it is the villain in your life, then it's the villain in your life. That's your choice. But if it's the portal to knowing your God and creating the relationship that you know in your heart is there, then you'll reveal that and find that also. It is my wish that this has helped you find your own truth. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope that this has helped. It is the most humblest of things that I do, that I share this and I say this and I express what I've been given. And I do not keep it to myself because it was not meant for me and me alone. It is not here for my amusement. I'm most humbled that I get to have this experience with you and with God. It is truly something so great that I can't even put it into words. So thank you for being here. If this has helped you, let me know. If this has helped you, let others know. If you know someone that would need this or benefit or would like to hear this, share this. It is my mission that this reach as far as it possibly can, and I cannot do that. So I rely on others. I rely on God to guide. I rely on God to open the hearts of those who would answer. And for that, I am eternally grateful. But beyond all of that, I am doing what I have been requested to do, which is sharing the message and putting the message out. And I will let the rest be done in trust, as it is, and so it is. I'm Sherry Hemstreet. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this. You can find out more at sherryhemstreet.com, thesherryhemstreet.com. And also, you can get more of these Return to God revivals by signing up to get notifications on my website. Thank you so much for being here. You are love and you are loved.